Well, hello there. Happy Tuesday. I'm popping in for some unscripted, off-the-cuff tower talk, being as though today's collective card for our potential blocker challenge this week is, in fact, none other than the Tower. And if you just listen to the little Audible Mystic clip there about the flipped message of the Tower, which is actually quite hopeful, which is actually quite, bringing us into this okay, stuff's blowing. What now? What do I do with what I have to work with, And, I just thought, because so much has been unfolding for me in the 5 minutes that we've been in this week, it seems like I get to be one of the poster children for some of these cards this week in a way that is quite true to life, and I think that's why I want to talk about it today, is just to kind of share with you my own personal practical way that these cards are playing out for me, with a full disclaimer out the gate that says we've all got stuff going on and we all have, different things happening where, they can be quite simple and just kind of silly, symbolic of hanging upside down or in some way, tuning into these different cards, all the way to some really significant, very difficult, crumblings that we may be navigating, and everything that's building up to this, death rebirth energy. And of course, the promise on the other end of that inspiration of swords. So it's so Queen of Cups, Spirit of Cups of me to come in here under these circumstances, just because I'm definitely feeling that today. The Spirit of Cups, we talked about being like that, energy of mothering and empath and sensitive and intuitive and all those beautiful energies coming into some form of balance or equilibrium. And of course, in order to do that, in order to find that center, in order to get grounded, as we talked about, and again, I'm referring to all of the messages that we brought through on Sunday. So if you haven't caught up, if you're just jumping in, feel free to check those out at your leisure or as you feel called. But I'm just kind of building off of what was already shared around our cards this week. And I'm bringing in a beautiful spray I don't use often. It's one of the special featured sprays that were available for a limited time. I don't know if this is available any longer from Angelic Celestial Colors, but it's the Queen of Hearts that was actually created in the energies of Princess Diana, and some beautiful channeled videos and messages from Amanda Ellis with Princess Diana. But it's a beautiful energy, Queen of Hearts, England's Rose, and it says memories and remembrance. But I think it's just really beautiful. I have some rose symbolism coming in. Of course, the beautiful energy of the Queen of Hearts, which is exactly how we've kicked off this week. So I'm just kind of bringing that energy in and just sharing a few things. Never a shortage of stories up in here. Over the Tower. True to life. Let's see, how many things can I squeeze on here? I think that means that we don't have room for that. So we'll do it like this. So, I went to my chiropractor earlier today, and I absolutely love my chiropractor. She's a wonderful, intuitive shaman, so much more. I've talked about her before. And my husband and I tend to go together every 2 weeks just to get adjustments. She also does some other amazing, all types of energetic healing and metaphysical things and all kinds of stuff. I've been seeing her since 2011, actually. So that's just to set the groundwork, because what she said to me when I came in this morning was, "Have you been taking your iron? Because you look like crap." That's what she said. And I said, well, and I started to launch into my explanation, and I backed it up and I said, no, I haven't. But I am going to go get my lab work done that is just barely overdue. It's overdue, but just barely. So enter into the cycle that is something that many of you who have been with me for years know, that I have issues with iron deficiency anemia and have needed a number of iron infusions over the years, and tend to follow a very predictable schedule of filling up the tank, draining it to, dry, and then again, rinse, repeat. So anyway, in between those cycles, I ought to be taking my Ferro Food iron supplement, which doesn't always happen. And anyway, she just saw on my face, she says, you look like you could cry any minute with all the things you have going on, like she knows me. And I said, yeah, well, as I said the other day, they seem to have coined this Maycember phrase to describe a time of year here that rivals December, when, traditionally there's all of this, holiday buzzing about and gifts and events and things to attend to that, take a lot of energy and a lot of juggling and all the things. And May, for many, is seeming to be quite similar with all of the, especially, in the season that I'm in with 4 children and end of year teacher gifts, parties, field trips, field day, theme days, all the things. It is a lot, and it's all those 2 of Pentacles that we've been juggling the previous 2 weeks, that we were getting here. And again, this is just the way it's showing up for me. It's going to be different for everybody. But I just wanted to share, just the way it's unfolding here. Because, the Tower moment and this pause in between, which is the blessing, our perspective, our Hanged Man, giving way to death, rebirth energy, and then the new fresh ideas and inspirations and things, blowing the lid off of that box type energy, right? As we move through this week. But we're there's feels, and there's depth of all the things. So this Tower is showing up. My youngest, Elena Joy, who I've shared about before and in the past, have shared that, she has some chronic health condition that we became aware of in the last year and almost a half, that she has a pretty profound Hashimoto's, a hypothyroid condition. And that through that, which is something we did not know about, she developed a rare underlying syndrome that causes her to have precocious puberty, so advanced puberty. So while she's only 9, since she was 7, these things have been happening where, my little mama radar was going off, nothing that suggested the hypothyroid, but rather, having 2 older girls and kind of knowing somewhere along the spectrum of the way things developed. And, this one seemed a little sooner, So anyway, unfolded down the line, we get, because of the precocious puberty, I take that and we kind of backed into a sort of surprise hypothyroid diagnosis. So we have been working with a wonderful physician's assistant from Nemours Children's Hospital since last year, helping to find the right levels of medication and care and things. And it has been a struggle. We've had a really hard time with this TSH level, her thyroid level, even sniffing at where it needs to be. I mean, she has an extreme, profoundly high TSH. So anyway, lest I give you every detail as I tell stories, yesterday we had her follow-up appointment with her physician's assistant at Nemours, and we repeated the x-ray that they do of their hands to check the bone age, to see how they're aging. So when we first were brought there, her bone age appeared to be pretty average despite the symptoms, the signs that we were seeing. And at that point, a certain stage, and they're like, yes, for sure, she's in like a premature puberty, but we're at this space where it's not your traditional, it's where, once that thyroid's under control, that pseudo precocious puberty goes away. So because we have not been able to get the thyroid under control, when she had that x-ray yesterday, while she just turned 9 in January, her bones are now indicating that she is 11. So that's not great news, because, you know, in the scheme of the way that we grow and, you know, when those hormones show up and everything, it can profoundly stunt her growth in the long run, because you only have a certain window to grow to your full potential. And so, you know, it was really about kind of getting a baseline of where we're at, what we're looking at, what we're dealing with here, and what needs to happen, you know, and how do we get that together. And so I think, you know, what I want to say about that is, well, also, if anyone's familiar with Hashimoto's, the syndrome she has is called Van Wyck-Grumbach syndrome, also known as VWGS. It's extremely rare. It comes from prolonged hypothyroidism that triggers in the body a false puberty. So when I consult Google you know, with my doctorate in Googling, there's very little straightforward information to be found about it. But really, from what I understand is, you know, that's just sort of ancillary to the fact that really what needs to happen is the Hashimoto's needs to get under control. So I put that out there to my beautiful community if anybody does know anything about that. And I have some wonderful friends that have been helping me with, you know, putting their feelers out and sharing what they know in terms of diet and supplements and suggested labs to be done on certain vitamin deficiencies and things. So there's a lot of, and so what I feel here, and I'm coming in here to share vulnerably, is picking up the pieces then of that and getting those bearings and finding that equilibrium again in this moment to figure out where to from here to rebuild, you know. And I think anyone, you know, as a parent or a caregiver or someone that's been in a position of making decisions for others' well-being, we can have that whole, you know, guilty conscience in terms of, if only I knew this sooner or found this or noticed this, or, you know, had been more, you know, aggressive about researching and finding out things that I could be doing for her in the way of supplements and diet. Perhaps we would have caught this, you know, when her growth plates were still in a much more manageable place. And yeah, I'm moving through that, and also looking to give myself grace, knowing that I trust that everything is unfolding divinely, which isn't easy to do when we're in the middle of a tower moment, right? And again, if I can't manage to take my own iron supplements, knowing what happens on the other end of that when I don't care for myself, perhaps there are some things that this tower moment has shown up. And I talked about this on Sunday: shakeups to wake up, breakups to make up. So if it's past time, to get those juices flowing in terms of taking care of health and diet and things in our family that may have gotten away from us in the form of just busy lifestyle and checking out and, you know, whatever it is, that perhaps this moment, you know, be the thing, right, that helps us to really rally and rebuild from that space. Thanks again to Elena Joy, who has been that, you know, source in our life when she came in by surprise at the end, you know, finishing out the Jeffries clan here, you know, has been true to that. So I say all that, thank you for listening, because now the hanged man perspective. So now we're here looking at a situation from above in order to kind of get that sense of, you know, what's the big picture here? It's not just, again, I talked about that gray cloud that can follow us around and feel like, you know, why is this happening to me, as opposed to for me. Enter in the death rebirth, you know, which is this cycle, this endless cycle of renewal. And so there's something further coming in for me. And this one's a little more, you know, just more symbolic from nature in terms of, you know, tower moments and death rebirth. But I've talked often about my beloved rose tree that's out front. And I actually have done a little piece that I made before as a little love letter from February to everyone that I tend to reshare each year around Valentine's Day. And I did over on the February Empowerment Sharecast this year. So I'm kind of inspired. I think if I get it together for Thursday under the energies of this death rebirth coming forward for us this week, I'll share more. But because I was going to share with you the story of that rose tree, because we've had some new developments. The original part of the rose tree died. It died. It wasn't able to be saved. And my husband had mentioned, because he is the one with the green thumb here, and he does the landscape, stuff. And so I would always go out and just appreciate the rose tree, and then the stalk that had then been reborn from it, that bloomed new different colored roses, and then together they've have this beautiful display every year. I enjoy sharing the pictures. I made the 2 of my Nature Speaks affirmation cards are from that tree, and photos that I took of buds in various stages of bloom. Actually 3 of my cards blossoming as well. So death, rebirth, and blossoming are 3 cards from my little passion project that hasn't had much action in many years, but I've shared the cards with you as they come up. I went out this morning when we were leaving for the chiropractor, and I looked over and I saw that he had officially cut away, the original tree. So the original tree has died and it's been removed. And so, I go to the chiropractor, I find out that I look like shit. And then I'm laying there, in thought, and then the stuff starts coming in, Spirit of Cups style, with all the intuitive hits and everything, of all the symbolism of that tree being no more and having changed and bringing on a new norm, of that, and where it's going to blossom from here. So anyway, very symbolic, still unfolding, and I will share more about that if I do put a little something together there for that, if my inspiration of swords arrive on time and I'm able to do that before my oldest actually is having surgery on Friday. I know it sounds crazy. My oldest is having a corrective surgery. Pretty straightforward. We're hoping that all will go well. I know that she's going to be, recovering profoundly over the weekend. She tends to be one who definitely will be in need of some TLC from Mama as she's recovering. It's a nasal surgery, so I know it's going to be quite a lot on Friday. So all that being said, stay tuned for more. But I will say, that being said, that these cards, Tarot to Life, are really playing up for me this week. So I wonder how things are shaping up for you. And it doesn't have to be anywhere near as, wacky as my stories. But, and I know, like, if, I'm going to be doing the personal card pulls that have been requested, over today and tomorrow, shaping up so that I am in a position then to step into my mother nursing caregiver role for the end of the week. And yes, when I came home from the chiropractor, I took my iron. So I am going to try to make a more concerted effort to remember to take it and schedule my labs, because I'm due to have my levels checked. And then all at once, it occurs to me that, oh, maybe that's why I'm feeling, how I am. So I thought I would just pull us maybe a card or 2 just for a little inspiration here, to take the Tower and extract from perceived losses and dramatic shifts and changes and things that can come up in our lives into beautiful moments of perspective making, of getting that higher perspective to come in. So let's just see what wants to come up. I'm going to pull 2 tarot cards and an oracle card for us, just to see. Well, that was the Inspiration of Cups that just winked at us, which is the Page of Cups, like our Inspiration of Swords for this week. So let's just see. I'm going to pull 2 cards, and then I'm going to see what wants to come through in terms of, I'm just kind of making the intention for anyone who's seeing this, that all of our energy collectively coming in, and whenever you see it, that there's a message in here for us around highest and best guidance. I mentioned that there was a lot of course I'm pulling 2. I was going to say it's the first day of Gemini season, which I wanted to share with you a little more about that too. The two sides, the different things to look at here. So that can be the yin, the yang, the aspects of being and doing, or however, we'll just see what comes up. I'm going to pull them both together and then we'll read them together to see how they're interacting. So 2 cards for us here in our tower talk to see what's coming forward. 1, I didn't look yet. I'll put that one down. And second card to go with. Okay. Okay. So we got the 2 of Wands and the 7 of Cups. So speak of perspective, we have this lens, this focus, because the 2 of Wands is about looking out into the future in terms of our choices. 2 is a choice point. 2 in like Gemini season is here, and we have the 2 sides, right? And we talked about how the Gemini twins are symbolic of those two aspects of us. Yes, I am in this human body having this physical experience, but I'm also a spirit. And so the aspects of me coming into balance and harmony through the 2, the blending. And this is just a beautiful, beautiful version of that 2 of Wands. So along with sort of, and what's neat is the lens as a symbol, because if we think about that in terms of zooming in, zooming out, right? And think about how we have perspective here. Zooming in, zooming out, coming into focus. And yet the 7 of Cups is about not being able to see what those choices are and sometimes having to make those choices. This is the card we had last week as part of our 777s that we were talking about last week. This week I shared about the angel numbers. You know, we can't make it up that this keeps coming around. But a beautiful version, of course, that making choices without necessarily seeing the full picture or knowing exactly where it's going to go. So these 2 coming in together, giving us, again, different perspectives, different ways to look at it, you know, and one of them is very hands-on, right? And this one is kind of like feet up. Hey, I'm in the hammock, you know, like, it's 5 o'clock somewhere, you know, there's this energy of like, but this is the card that I said, you know, the choose wisely, that sense of like, you know, when I make a choice in the future, where I'm going from this moment, you know, here and everything that's available to me, I want to make that choice ideally from the seat of my wise self. So if I'm reeling from a tower moment, if I'm in a situation that's quite emotional, if I'm feeling very waterlogged, you know, emotion, heart chakra, all the feels, perhaps it's best that I step back, dry out a little before I make that decision, that choice, because I want to make that choice from here. And this is tomorrow's energy, Wednesday, midweek blessing, perspective, which is that Hanged Man, where we flip things over and see them through a different lens. So I love that these 2 came up. I just want to look in the book, see if I can park these here, if they're willing to share. Just to see Robyn's guidance around that beautiful symbol of the lens, because that might give us some insight into some further symbolism before we pull our oracle card to expand on that message. 2 of Wands. Planning and preparation, foresight, progress, making decisions, open to growth, ready for change, gathering confidence, setting yourself up for success. So the lens represents focusing on your goals, right? So, you know, she says, have you laser focused in on your goals, created affirmations, made lists, researched your path, and visualized success? Perfect. These are the things that you need to do to transform those initial dreams and inspirations into reality. Now, I know that the journey to your goal may seem daunting and you may doubt that you can do it, but allow the energy of the 2 of Wands to give you the confidence you need to allow the passion of impending success to rise within you. Be forewarned that you may need to step out of your comfort zone from time to time, but it will be worth it. And to me, That's the balloon ride, right? That's the opportunity to drop some of those sandbags and take that ride up and check out those different vantage points. So I see a lot of, again, just really divinely unfolding here, the messages and the way that we can weave a story. And I could come in and give you a completely different perspective of these cards. This is the one that I'm choosing to be in now, right? And so therein lies our power. We can't control the things, the tower stuff. But are there choices that we can make that can help for different outcomes? Yes, of course, right? Take your iron. So again, it's that, why is this happening for me? What's coming up to show me about this? All right, let's pull a final card. Alrighty. Let's just see what wants to come up from the Oracle of Oneness for us here. A final message for our Tuesday. And then I'll share a little bit more on Gemini season for you. And get into some card pulls. Let's see. What is coming up here from the Oracle of Oneness to round out our messages? Setting healthy boundaries fosters self-respect. Drawing that line. It's funny because I did the math in my head that the 7 of Cups and the 2 of Wands were a 9 energy together. The 7 plus 2 being 9, which is our universal number of this year. All about graduations, culminations, endings, calling for perseverance and resilience because you're almost there. And this is giving me, because of that likeness with the 9, not just boundaries, but it's like, hey, you're almost there to the finish line. But sometimes it feels like it's a movable line, right? So it's like, there's an energy of that perseverance and that resilience as well being called for when we look at it from the frequency of the number 9. Now, if we look at it through the lens of the Oracle of Oneness, let's see what she says. So it says, affirmations. I set clear and healthy boundaries. I respect the boundaries set by others. Setting boundaries is self-care and that I deserve. I communicate my boundaries with kindness. So it says, we are energetically connected to one another, which is why it's essential to establish boundaries to protect our physical, mental, and emotional space. Many of us didn't learn how to set healthy boundaries growing up, and we may not even realize when we're overstepping with others. Boundaries can be physical, mental, emotional, financial, material, or time related. It's important to decide what's acceptable to you and what's not. If someone is pushing your boundaries and making you uncomfortable, it's not only okay to speak up, it's necessary. Watch for signs that someone is invalidating or belittling your ideas, feelings, or thoughts. You have the right to make choices and to set limits when unreasonable demands are placed on you and your time. Setting boundaries and embracing oneness may seem like opposing ideas, but in reality, they complement each other and are both essential for setting clear expectations so we can manage and engage in relationships from a place of mutual respect and understanding. Healthy boundaries include being able to say no and accepting when others do the same. Respect others' opinions, protect your privacy, and honor theirs. Learn to communicate your needs clearly and decide when it's appropriate to compromise. What is your body telling you? It will signal when something feels off. Pay attention to your intuition. Without healthy boundaries, you risk burning out and resenting those around you. And in this card, where is the light? It says, yellow, sunny, hopeful light shines from the healthy boundaries you create. That's beautiful. We use the Archangel Jophiel, beauty and wisdom, the yellow ray, the sunny yellow ray on Sunday. We brought that energy in. And so again, wanting to experience all of these things through the lens of our wise self, our perhaps joyful self, or looking to find equilibrium in that state of joy, even when we have to spend time in either direction because that's what we came here for on this fool's journey, to have those real, tangible, physical experiences, visceral sometimes experiences. So it's all under this umbrella of this beautiful life, and it's all the things. And so it continues to create opportunities to deepen our appreciation of the joy-filled moments and the lightness and all of the, the good stuff, so that when inevitably we experience its opposite, as we must in order to have that contrast and find that equilibrium, that it's about how we navigate that energy and how we come out on the other side of that death rebirth process, perhaps newly inspired and with new understandings and perspectives, which is the swords bringing through for us these new beliefs, new ideas, new inspirations. And, it's beautiful because, as again, visceral as this energy can be, shocking, hitting us at the top, at the crown, jolting, this is another way of that being expressed anew. And it's beautiful because this is also that youthful, novice, beginner energy that starts fresh on the other side of death and rebirth. So we really do have a beautiful trajectory unfolding this week. And so, like I said, wherever you are in this process, be there, and if I can support you, if we can support each other, that's what I would love to make, here in our community and in this space, bringing all of that in. So I thank you again for your time and energy coming in here and for listening to my stories. And I hope that you're finding some beauty, wisdom, and joy through our messages this week. So thank you again for being here. If you would like a personal card pull this week, like I said, I'll be doing those through Thursday. Friday, I'll be putting my nurse mom hat on. So feel free to let me know in whatever way works for you. I'm sending you much love and many blessings. Let's talk about Gemini season here for a moment.